Melbourne to Sydney is the 5th busiest air route in the world. It takes about an hour to fly, or around 9 hours if you choose to drive. But there is one other way that you can travel between these two cities, and today, for some reason why, I'm still trying to work out exactly what those reasons are, but I've decided instead to take the XPT. I'm here in Southern Cross Station in Melbourne then because I wanted to find out what the experience is like on board the XPT. I want to find out if it's faster, I want to find out if it works out as better value for money, and I just wanted to see what the overall experience was like on board this rather ageing but pretty quintessential part of Australian transportation. It's very loud.
The Australian XPT is based on the UK's Intercity 125. It was introduced back in the 1980s, and apart from a few refurbishments, to be honest, not a lot has changed to this journey since then. In fact, the former New South Wales Rail Chief described this rail link as inadequate for current and future needs, and that was all the way back in 1995. And that's probably why most people generally choose the plane when they're travelling between these two cities instead of travelling by train. But they're not me. But I did decide to book a first class ticket on this train because it wasn't too much more than the economy, and I just thought a little bit of comfort for the long journey might be a good thing.
Okay, raising car C, small bags done here, large bags in car B. We are going to depart in 8 minutes time. Door locking procedures will shortly commence. Anyone not travelling, can you please leave the train? Passengers, please note this is a fully reserved service. Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard New South Wales Trainlink XPT service from Melbourne through to Sydney. Thank you and good morning.
Our route today is going to take us out of Melbourne, through regional Victoria, up into New South Wales and across to Sydney on the east coast of Australia, stopping at many country towns along the way. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the Australian landscape changing right before my eyes, all from this seat, which is going to be my home for the next, well, okay, let's talk about timings. Travelling to the airport or the station. Now, Melbourne still doesn't have a train line between the CBD and the airport, so to drive from the city to the airport can take around 45 minutes, but if you're somewhere in the city and you're looking to get to Southern Cross where the train goes from, it shouldn't take you any more than about 15. Then at the other end in Sydney, you need to get into the CBD, and from the airport, again, a taxi can take you somewhere around 45 minutes. Check-in these days is pretty quick with things like mobile check-in and the kiosks, but there's no check-in on the train at all. Bag drop is pretty much equivalent between the two. Again, these days it's pretty quick at the airport, and bag drop at Southern Cross was really fast for me this morning. And then there's security. Now, of course, you can have bad days at the airport, but in general, if you give yourself around 10 minutes, that's normally enough. But there's no security checks for the train. And if you just add things up at this stage, it's actually looking really good for the train, until you then factor in, of course, the time it takes for the actual journey itself.
Ladies and gentlemen, I do apologise for the ride on this morning's train so far. It is a little bit bumpy. Obviously, we got the wrong fuel put into the train. We must have got the Qantas fuel for their flying kangaroos that skipped across the joint, and our train is now skipping along. Alright, so smoking, taking of illegal drugs, antisocial behaviour is strictly prohibited. So, to get us to our destination, behave. And we'll do the same.
Yes, sir. Something comfortable then? Something quiet?
Very fast, perhaps.
Or very safe?
I guess I'd like the luxury of all those things.
I've got it! The perfect answer. No parking worries.
No speeding worries.
You can even hold meetings.
How much? I'll take it.
Hello, how are you? Can I just get a black tea, 1 sugar, please?
You help yourself to any sugar that you need, mate. That's all good.
That's great, thank you very much.
No problem.
Your ticket price doesn't include any food that you want to get from the buffet, and that includes the hot meal service that they're going to offer later on in this trip. It's hard to do an exact side-by-side comparison on prices between a plane and a train because there's so much variety in airline prices, but I generally find an economy airfare is anywhere around $200 to $300 these days. Whereas for the train, it's only $99 for the economy fare all the way through from Melbourne to Sydney, or $139 for the first class ticket that I'm travelling on today. But you do also need to factor in your travel to and from the airport. I mean, that 45-minute taxi can cost $80, $90, sometimes even over $100. And if you've got something similar at the other end, suddenly your $200 airfare can easily be over $300 with your taxis. We are about an hour and a half into the journey now. past Seymour. That was our second stop. Quite enjoying it actually. Seeing lots of kangaroos, plenty of cows. Got myself a tea, had a banana, listening to some music. Train life is good. A few more hours into the journey, we started getting close to Albury, which is a significant part of this journey for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because it's the boundary between Victoria and New South Wales. But in relation to our train service, this is the place where the Melbourne and Sydney crews swap over.
Ladies and gentlemen, the buffet located in Car C has just closed for service. Now this is only a temporary closure due to our crew changeover at Albury this afternoon.
And as we crossed over the mighty Murray River, meaning our train was now in New South Wales.
Your attention please, ladies and gentlemen. New South Wales Train Link XPT service will shortly arrive at Albury.
The Melbourne and Sydney crews swapped over in Albury, which didn't actually take all that long. And not before long, we were back on our way again. Now, this part of the journey, as mentioned, this is where you can actually order a hot meal from the buffet. And today's options are
butter chicken and rice, spaghetti bolognese, roast pork and vegetables, or Moroccan vegetarian tagine.
But like all but one other person in our coach today, I'd actually brought my own lunch along just to save a bit of money. If you really want to save money on this train, there's also a little price hack for the XPT. So instead of booking a single ticket from Melbourne to Sydney, you can get a single ticket from Melbourne to Albury on the local train, which only costs you $7.60. Then get the XPT from Albury to Sydney for $78, which saves you $13.40 off the regular economy fare. Yes, I know it's only a small saving, but it's a saving nonetheless. And to be honest, those are the sorts of things that you work out when you've got a spare 11 hours in your life.
A crew member will be at the door to assist those passengers leaving at Calcan through the rear door of carriage E. Please ensure you have everything with you and take care when leaving the train.
Well, this is the State Rail's latest weapon to try and woo passengers back to train travel, the XPT. The XPT could have been a 160-kilometre train like the British HST, but our rails couldn't take it. And so it'll have a top speed of 125 kilometres per hour, which is barely faster than existing trains.
We've been going for about 5 hours, 20 minutes now. Still enjoying the train life, don't get me wrong. Legs are a little bit tired, but I've had something to eat. Been reading a book, doing a crossword. Everyone's just kind of like, keeping themselves to themselves, having a bit of food whenever they want something to eat. But I have to say, I thought it would be a lot noisier in here. You can probably tell I'm keeping my voice quite low. But it's not. It's actually quite quiet. Even when we're travelling at speed, it's quite quiet inside these carriages. We're also about to come up to a part of this journey that I've been looking forward to. This is a heritage listed part of the track between Melbourne and Sydney. You see, this is the part of the journey where we start to go uphill, and to help out this old train, the designers decided that they needed to add a spiral. It's kind of like a holding pattern in an aircraft to allow the train to climb over terrain that otherwise would have been too steep. And so they created this. It's called the Bethungra spiral. Now, our northbound line to Sydney, I'm going to paint it in yellow here. You see at this point diverges away from the southbound line, goes around this big spiral through a couple of tunnels, underneath the southbound line, climbing uphill as we go, over the top of the southbound line for one more time, and eventually meeting up with the southbound line further on whilst it's climbed uphill. Conversely though, the southbound line, I'll paint that in red, doesn't actually do this spiral. That spiral was conceived and built back in the 1940s, and I think it's a really clever way to use that conveniently located hill. But trains designed back in the 1980s using track layouts from the 1940s, it did make me think about the future of high-speed train travel here in Australia. The government did recently greenlight a 2-year process to plan a high-speed rail link between Newcastle and Sydney. That's going to reduce travel times from 2 hours 40 minutes down to about an hour. There's talk to expand this to Western Sydney International Airport. But whilst governments have been promising us an upgrade to the high-speed link between Melbourne and Sydney, there really are no concrete plans to do this. So for people who do rely on this rail link, they are going to have to put up with the longer travel times probably for some time to come.
Nick will be walking through your carriage, taking hot meal orders, Moroccan vegetarian tagine, beef brisket and vegetables, or a mac and cheese. They will take about an hour to prepare. Announcement will be made when these meals are hot and ready for collection. For those who have just joined us, there is a buffet located in car C.
Been on this train now for 10 hours and 1 minute. Feeling pretty tired, as you can imagine, mainly in my legs. Haven't managed to get up and walk around as much as I probably would have liked to or should have done. But I actually feel quite good, and things have been really smooth. Things have, like, we're on time. It's nice and quiet in the cabin. Everyone's been really friendly. The staff have been amazing. They're looking after everybody here on the train. Everyone seems to be in pretty good spirits, but I think, like me, everyone's pretty excited to get to Sydney now, which we should be at in about another hour and a bit. In my somewhat fatigued state of mind at this point of the journey, I don't think I've properly summed up how fantastic the staff on this train actually were. For passengers, look, who did seem predominantly older than those that you would find on a plane, the staff were helping them on and off at stations. They held their arm and helped them to the toilets.
The XPT will arrive at Campbelltown. If you're leaving the train at Campbelltown, please stand prepared to do so.
They helped them with all the food options. They carried hot drinks from the buffet for them. They were making jokes to break up the long journey.
The temperature here in Sydney is it's the same as my age, 22 degrees.
They're the ones that made what would otherwise have been a long and arduous journey into honestly something that felt like you were on just this fun holiday coach trip.
Thank you very much to the crew for your hard work today. Sydney Central Station, our next and final stop. Thank you.
3, 2, 1. There we stopped.
I started this video questioning why I chose to take the train between Melbourne and Sydney. 11 hours, 16 minutes and 1 second later, and I'm finally in Sydney. And whilst it was a fun and enjoyable experience, I'll probably never get the train between Melbourne and Sydney again. But by taking the train today, I actually got a really unique opportunity to see the reasons why other people do need to take that train. And it could be because maybe some people find it harder to make their way through the hectic security screening, baggage check-in, long queues, the physical endurance that can be flying a plane. It's fine for younger people, but I think for the older generation, I can understand why the train can be seen as a much calmer and probably a more comfortable experience. Then there's the people who live in the remote locations that we pass through. I can imagine as well there are some people who don't enjoy flying full stop, maybe even people who have a fear of flying. And then you simply got the people like the person in front who is really into his steam trains. I think he used to be a train driver and he just wanted to ride this line because it reminded him of when he used to work in the rail industry. So whilst that was a long day and I'm probably not going to get the train again between Melbourne and Sydney, I will choose to fly like I normally do. I'm really glad I did that journey today. I think I really have a newfound respect and appreciation for that train and all the people that work on it too.